So yeah, Joel already did some presentation, but I'll continue a little bit. So my name is Etiene Dalcol. I'm from Brazil. I'm currently a software engineering student in France. Like he said, I developed Sailor, which is a framework, web framework for Lua. And yeah, so some months ago. Sorry, take that. Okay. So some months ago, MLH invited me to give a workshop on introduction to programming on Women's International Leadership Conference in Bremen. And this was an amazing experience that taught me incredible things. Some of them were just pleasant surprises. Some of them were technical things, like how to approach people with different degrees of knowledge. And some of them were complete self-discoveries. And I'd like to share that with you. So some of the topics I'll cover is why using JavaScript as a programming language on an introduction course, what is feasible in such a short time, why inspiring people is important, and what I learned with all that. So let's talk about JavaScript. No, just kidding. So JavaScript was a choice. I was pretty free to do whatever I want in the workshop. So I'll go through how I came up to this conclusion that using JavaScript would be a good idea. But the story does not begin with JavaScript. It begins with Lua. So some people in the audience might know me as the Lua person. And so yeah, some weeks before I think it was 1 week actually, I don't remember. So some period of time before the conference, I participated in London Hack. And during my hack, made a small game using Lua and the Love2D framework. And I was very impressed at how fast and fun that was. I mean, you can look at my face, I was pretty happy. And this reminded me, actually, of my first experience with programming. I don't do a lot of game development nowadays, but this was how I started. So there was this game. It was called Hackcon Online. And we could run local servers with it. And we could modify some text files, load them in-game, and then this magical thing happened. We could have like this little NPCs that we could click, and they would do exactly what I told them. I mean, it was so powerful, so exciting. And this was what made me change careers. At the time, I was studying music, and I said, but this feels great. And I changed. So if I could relate to that, I thought, well, maybe more people will. So I said, okay, I'm going to do something related to gaming. I already have this small game I made in Lua, so I go through it with them. So my experience taught me that visualizing was important, not only because of the feedback, but because of this excitement of seeing something you did, like moving around and doing stuff. There were some problems with the game, though. Mostly it was because of Lua, unfortunately. I really like Lua. I tell people all the time to use it. But in this context, unfortunately, I had to consider some other options. So basically, this is what I wanted to go through during the workshop. Some basics, like variables, arrays, etc. And if you think about this, there is a huge amount of programming languages that can do this very well. So okay, let's think about some of them. So there was Python that is used a lot for beginners. I mean, there is a huge amount of libraries and resources and tutorials and stuff like that. But I remember my very first Python day, and it took me 30 minutes to figure out why my code was not working when it looked exactly like the tutorial I was following. It was because somewhere where there should have been a tab, there were 4 spaces. And I started having homicidal thoughts. So, okay, let's think about something else. So what about JavaScript? People can argue that JavaScript is huge. And yes, you can do incredible stuff with it. It is a little complex. It might do some unexpected things. By the way, if you haven't watched this talk yet by Gary Bernhardt called What, please do go and watch it. It's hilarious. So going back. So the question is, could JavaScript be scary to beginners? Maybe, but maybe not, because we don't necessarily have to use everything. I mean, it's a very short workshop. We could just use a very small subset of the language, and realistically, we wouldn't go stumble into these kinds of problems everyone always complains about JavaScript. The second point is that I wouldn't be doing the workshop alone. 150 people is a lot of people. So the conference organized a wonderful team of volunteers. And again, while Lua is great, it is a little obscure. So it would be better in this situation if you use a language that everyone in the team knew and was comfortable with, because everyone would be walking around and answering questions, and JavaScript met this requirement. And the last one is about the tools being used. So setting up an environment already isn't the most nice and pleasant activities before we're going to start putting our hands on something. And while installing Lua and the game development framework is pretty straightforward, I'm saying that from my perspective as a software engineering student. And I was dealing with an audience with beginners. So the more I could reduce this effort, the better. And if you think about it, JavaScript is pretty great in this aspect, because everyone already has what it takes to start programming on JavaScript. They already have a browser and a text editor, or even just a browser. Someone in the team suggested we use Mozilla Thimble, which is pretty great. We can put like the code, and you can see the results side by side. It's really, it makes it really easy to share the project and get them started. So to sum it up, so JavaScript offers 0 effort to install, download, and get it going. It doesn't need any additional libraries to do graphical things. So we use canvas manipulation. Which makes it like easier to remember in case they want to mess with it again after the workshop. There are less steps they have to go through again. And it's pretty useful. If you think about it, beginners, they aren't looking to make a new TCP/IP protocol. They absolutely don't want to know what monads are. I'm looking at you, Joe. Not to beginners, please. But yeah, so JavaScript is kind of closer to their reality because they use browsers every day, and it is closer to the kind of software they have direct contact with. So from that perspective, it's a more useful language. So okay, the next step was porting the game from Lua to JavaScript and start preparing the workshop and trying to make it fit in 2 hours. So how to do that? One of the things is using a skeleton code. This is pretty useful, although not really optimal. If you do things from scratch, the participants will certainly learn way more, but it's not doable, not in a short time. If you have more time, go ahead, make everything from scratch. But in 2 hours, you have to use a skeleton code. So what I did with them exactly was, so I prepared the whole game, and then I removed some parts so they could fill and modify. And when I would tell them, what a variable is. I could say, okay, there is this little variable called scale. If you change the number, and if you look on the rest of the code, you can see that this variable is being used to multiply all the images on the game. So they could just like change one variable and see like the canvas shrink or enlarge and have this like instant visual effect. And when I want to tell them what functions are, I could just say, okay, so let's make the function that makes the duck move, and so on. So more tricks. So try to have everything ready. Not that screwing up is such a big problem. They aren't going to judge you or anything. If you're given a workshop, chances are you'll know more than them, so you don't really have to worry about this part. But if you improvise and something goes wrong, you lose a lot of time, and this is the precious thing here. This is actually a really simple thing, but that can save like a whole 10 minutes. If you have an easy URL, you kind of save that time where people are completely clueless, or how do I start, where do I get the materials, and everyone is asking each other. So it's a really simple thing that saves some time. Also, okay, you give them time to write their code, but at some point, you have to say time's up, give the answer, and move on. Because you don't really want to risk getting stuck at some point and then not going until the end of the workshop. Also, try not moving to the next topic without giving the answer of the last topic, because you might lose someone there. They'll get stuck on that part until the end of the workshop, and they will get very, very frustrated, and they will hate programming forever. And another aspect is that if you just give the answer, you may think, oh, okay, I'm giving the answer, they aren't learning anything. But it's not true, because some students, they might not come up with the answer by themselves, but when they see, when you explain, they'll really get it, and they will be able to reproduce it later. So don't be afraid to say, okay, let's move on. And give the answer and change topics. And another trick is to leave the extra things for the end. So, for example, I could teach them how to use the module operator by making the wings of the duck flap. And I could teach them some flux control by clicking on the screen and knowing if it's over the duck and kill the duck. So what's more important for the workshop? There are some aspects to consider here. The first one is that I wanted them to have a complete game after the workshop. So what is more important for the game dynamics? What is more important as a programming lesson? And what is easier for them in case they have to look for themselves later? So yeah, I decided that the poor duck had to die. And I left the wing flapping for the end of the workshop. And this ended up being a great idea because, yes, I had to cut it. We didn't have enough time, and the non-essential is the thing that has to go. And this is something I'm giving a little special attention, because this is something I screwed up, which is typography. So I was using the slides and the code on Mozilla Symbol. So I was explaining some stuff here. These were the slides branded from MLH. So I didn't really put any thought into it. It was just like using the branded style. So this slide, while I was explaining what comments were, they worked just fine. But this one didn't at all. When I told them, okay, let's make the function that makes the duck move. I just had this, and then I moved to Mozilla Symbol. But this was enough to screw a lot of things up. Can you guess why? Yes, that. It was impossible for them to know if these were square brackets or parentheses. And once they look at the code, they were just like, confused, like what's going on. So, no. And this is really an interesting thing, because I did show the slides to some friends who are programmers. I showed them to people on the team. I showed them to someone from MLH, and nobody raised a flag there, because we know this. When we don't know, we get really mad. And this was very frustrating for me, because this is something that annoys the hell out of me when professors do this exact same thing. And then on my first workshop, I screwed up. So yes, lesson taken, typography is important. So yeah, in the end, we were able to pass through all of the things I wanted to pass through. And I learned that it is possible to do huge progress in 2 hours. So we should be making this more often. Given that, just a technical skill alone is not enough. Inspiring is really important. So I really wanted to make sure I showed them how magical and interesting technology can be. You certainly have to approach this differently according to your audience. But in my case, for example, I had an audience of mostly young women and who had little to no contact with programming. So I needed to tackle that. So one of the things I had to do is that, well, one of the things I wanted to do was to show them that the universe of programming and computer science is indeed a place where women can be. And this is something I'm constantly not convinced myself. So this is me. I'm not going into details about the issues women have in this universe, so this is why I only made this crappy drawing. Please forgive me. So yeah, more often than not, when dealing with technology, I'm the only woman in the room. I'm very thankful that this is not the case here today. We have a really nice group of people here in Hackcon, but this happens really often. And I was really desperate to tell the audience, stop what you're doing right now and come do tech with me, please. I'll bake cookies, cupcakes, anything. So yeah, so I started thinking, what can I do to inspire them? And one of those things were showing role models. So I've read about this. Our community is discussing these things more often recently. But this time was the time I really felt it. Was the time I saw, okay, this is really important. Because we are bombarded by images of successful males in our industry all the time. And women are often erased or not mentioned with the importance they deserve. And this can be very demotivating, because we can't see ourselves. Sometimes we can't see ourselves doing some things because we don't see people like us doing those things. So, okay, I need to show them women doing lots of programming and lots of cool stuff. And as I went through the stories and pictures and everything I wanted to share with them, I ended up inspiring myself. Because I was really excited to show these women, this group of wonderful women. And it struck me that, well, here I am. I am programming. I'm teaching programming. And I'm not going anywhere. This is it. So this was a moment that I really needed to go through these stories that I really needed to show someone. And this was an incredible experience for me. Thank you. And I really hope that this was as important to the audience as was for me. I really hope that some of them were positively surprised to see those names for the first time. I really hope that one day, one of them will be in my place doing the same thing. And when I saw the audience packed with women very happy to do programming. I mean, look at her face, she's actually enjoying it. And I was like, because to be honest, I was really worried about that. I mean, on the top of all these my insecurities of doing the workshop, like public speaking, English proficiency, body posture, speech, the actual content, I was really worried they would find it really boring and hate me. But no, apparently everything went all right, and I was like, wow. I got like this ear-to-ear smile that didn't go away until now. And I learned that teaching is really, really rewarding. And so if there is like one thing I want to tell you right now is teach people, really. Especially if it relates to something that you care about. And I promise that your life will change forever. So if by any chance you want to repeat this workshop, all the materials are on my GitHub. You can just get it, go and do it. You don't have to credit or anything. It would be nice though, but you don't have to. Just take it, like there's the complete code, the skeleton code with the comments, the slide. I debranded the slides. I made a new version of the slides because I used the MLH ones. But if you work with MLH and you want the first slides I made, you can ask me and I will send you on email. But like a regular slide is now on the GitHub account. And if you want to ask me anything later on Twitter about it, just come and shout. I'll gladly go through with everything with you. And if you have any questions right now, please go ahead. Thank you.
Well done, Etienne. That's fantastic. Oh, we have a question from Robbie.
Really great what you're doing. Absolutely love it. So I think you're a trailblazer as well. So congratulations on that front. Have you got any plans to do it again?
Tonight in the hostel.
Yeah. So yeah, we should speak afterwards then, because I'd love to get involved with the stuff you're doing.
Okay, thank you.
I think you just got a job.
Yeah, first of all, like, really great stuff you're doing there. The thing is, I recently had this thing with my computer society, which is based out of Edinburgh. We are going to be organizing workshops for females, like, who are not from a computer science background, but like freshers or like second-year students who are just mildly interested in the, subject. But like, it's more like a two-part thing. Like, first is like, how would you actually try to convince them to come and attend the workshop? Because sometimes, like, even with all the things that you're showing and like trying to motivate them, they have that, inherent fear of coming to a computer science thing because it's such a kind of a field, like, and so how really?
Yes, unfortunately, that is a question I don't know how to answer. Because in my case, the women were already there. I didn't have to worry about how to get them there because it was like a general conference about leadership, so they were discussing business and many other stuff. And this programming workshop was just one part of this large conference. But I think this can be like an interesting logistic to get things working, like maybe make something more general to attract them, so let's lure them first, and then you throw the programming in. I don't know.
Do you have images and like pictures and stuff of what you did previously? Because maybe you could use that with tweets of people that have given great positive feedback and say, look at this event.
Yes, I have some pictures. Yes.
Actually, if you could come for a lesson, that would be really great.
I'm really sorry, I have to cut this off here. Please, if you want to talk more about this, submit some discussions. Maybe you can even get her to do a workshop tomorrow or tonight. Cool. Thank you so much, Etienne.
Thank you.